Let's dive deeper into the Sheldon Keefe firing with our assembled panel. Bryan Hayes is here, Marty Biron, and our Leafs reporter Mark Masters joining us as well. Mark, let's start with you. The Leafs were one goal away from advancing to the second round. Instead, another early exit, and now Sheldon Keefe is out of a job. What do you think led to the Leafs making this decision?
Well, general manager Brad Treliving called him a great man and an excellent coach. He also gave him a contract extension less than a year ago. But it all comes down to one playoff series win in 5 seasons. And Sheldon Keefe himself said it on Monday. It's a results business. His team has not achieved what they were expected to achieve. He, more than anyone, seemed to see this coming. A lot of the same issues have popped up as well. You know, a lack of scoring in the playoffs, a lack of power play success. There are other issues here, of course. You know, roster construction, individual player performance. But in today's NHL, it always comes down to the coach being the first to fall.
Marty, do you think the firing was the right call?
Yeah, it was. And the coaching is like goaltending, right? You got to win if you want to stay ahead of the game and keep your job. If you lose, somebody else is going to take your job. And yes, Mark mentioned the playoff failure for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it wasn't only that. In the last 5 years, Tampa Bay was better in that division. Boston was better in that division. Florida is better in that division. So you expect the Toronto Maple Leafs to be one of the top, if not the top team in that Atlantic division, and they weren't. And in those 5 years, they've got one division title. Oh, yeah, it was the North Division in the COVID season. So they didn't really compete in the regular season with these other teams, and they didn't compete in the playoffs. So for that reason, yes, it was the right call.
Bryan, if this is the only major move that the Leafs make in the offseason, is it enough to make a significant difference?
No, it's not. And that would be massively disappointing, I think, for every Leaf fan if this is the only major move they make. They have to go above and beyond this, right? We know their track record in the playoffs. It's been well stated. I think coaching can be responsible for 5% of that, maybe 10%. That means 90 to 95% is on the players. And the core 4 players, this team does not score goals. They don't score goals in the playoffs. They have the best goal scorer in the world. He's coming back. I'm not suggesting Matthews is going anywhere. Willie's coming back. But the core 4 has got to be broken up. Samsonov is not coming back. That means your game 1 starter this year and last year is not here anymore. That's a big hole to fill. So you got to find that net. And I think there's going to be turnover on defense as well. There's got to be significant player personnel changes moving forward.
Mark, the Leafs say that their search begins now. How quickly do you think they'll want to identify their top choice?
We'll get a better sense at Friday morning's news conference, but I got to think this is going to move very quickly. It's not like they don't know what they need. When Keefe was hired, it was his first NHL job. He had won a Calder Cup at the AHL level, but it's pretty clear they need someone to get him over the hump in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They'll be looking for someone with that type of resume, and there are other job openings out there right now. That position in New Jersey's got to be pretty attractive to any of the free agent coaches. And the rest of the Leafs staff deserves to have some clarity on their status sooner than later. So I'm expecting this to move pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would think there's a short list of candidates. Craig Berube, Todd McLellan, 2 of my favorite top of the list when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs job. And, you know, I know Brad Treliving did not hire Sheldon Keefe when he made the jump from the AHL to the NHL. But usually after a coach has been fired, you go the opposite direction. Sheldon Keefe was a first-time NHL head coach, came from within the organization and from the AHL. The Leafs are not looking at the AHL. They're not looking within the organization, and they're definitely not looking at a first-time NHL head coach. So experience, like Berube, like Todd McLellan, is going to be a factor in this.
I think this is actually going to be a bit of a dicey proposition moving forward because I understand there's other vacancies out there. And Craig Berube, I think, is a really good coach that would fit in well here. And he's not going to wait around. But what if Rod Brind'Amour ends up not signing back in Carolina? These are the things that Brad Treliving Company have to consider at this point because Rod Brind'Amour is the man. If you can get him and you bring up his whole staff, by all accounts, that's an issue down in Carolina, that he wants everyone to be paid appropriately. No one will pay more than the Maple Leafs. I'm going back to the way they treated Mike Babcock. They said, we're not going to accept losing this guy. The problem is Brind'Amour's playing tonight. Yeah. He's still in the playoffs. He's not going to give you an answer by tomorrow morning at the press conference. But do they have the stomach to wait it out and possibly get in there and not just pay him, overpay him? Because Rod Brind'Amour, if you could bring him up here, that's a game changer. I like Berube. I like McLellan. I like other options, and they're right there in front of you. And if it's only money, you could probably have them in town by tomorrow. Do you have the stomach, if you're the Maple Leafs, to wait and possibly go out there and get Rod Brind'Amour.
You wonder if enough money could sway him to come north, because he lives and breathes in Carolina his whole entire life. He's a legend down there. That would be a massive career move for Ron Brind'Amour. The Leafs, going to want to move quickly, because the Devils, Sharks, Kraken, Jets, and the Kings also in the market for a head coach.